Hi, John.
Hi, Ellen.
What are we going to talk about today?
Ooh, I hope we're going to talk about the value of webinars, especially for book authors and speakers and anybody in business.
That sounds great. Sounds like a great topic. So, so I think one of the things is that I want to say, especially in general, about webinars for authors and speakers is that they're all trying to get their message out to the world. And this is something that webinars are supreme at. I once did a webinar series that got 3,000 registrations from 97 countries. So think about that kind of reach. Could you get that? It's possible. And just a couple of months ago, I did a webinar for a third-party organization. It's called Training Magazine, and we got 2,847 registrants, mostly their promotion, but some mine, and over 500 showed up live on the webinar. So if
you like it when it's their promotion.
Yeah. So the point is that if you're an author or a speaker, you have a message to get out to the world and you want to reach more people. And webinars is such an ideal way of doing that. So that's a big part of this webinar that I am doing, called High Profit Webinar Secrets. And so I wanted to talk about ways that you can not only do webinars in general, but how you can make money with webinars as a supplement to reaching more people with your message or your book or whatever. And just keep in mind that in any webinar, you can promote your book or promote your speaking, whatever you do, whatever you promote when you speak. So all of these are part of the content of the webinar, but you can make money at the same time. So are you ready?
Yes.
Okay, good. The most common type of webinar that probably most people are most familiar with is a free webinar that has free content and then there's an offer at the end. So it's a fairly typical sales webinar, although some sales webinars don't have free content. They just say, we have a great offer, we have a great product, and it's only sales. But online, I would say the most common type is where you offer some free content and then make an offer at the end that allows people to learn more about that topic. So let's say you have a book that's especially a nonfiction book. You might want to take a piece of one chapter and give that out as free information, and then the book in this is the offer at the end. And the same thing for a speaker. Whatever you do to get people to follow up and whatever you offer them, you can take a little piece. In fact, you can take a little piece of one of your talks and then say, I can do the rest of the talk or something like that, and then think of that as a course or some information that people want that they would want to pay for.
Right.
So that's one thing. Now, another thing that you can do is you can actually charge people for a webinar. It's pretty basic, right? Usually when you do that, I call it a training webinar. People will call it a workshop or a master class. So again, if you have, especially a nonfiction book, you have information that you're giving people. And so you can give that information in the format of a webinar. Not necessarily the whole book, but part of it. And in fact, your book can be like the textbook. So I've done that. I have a really short ebook called How to Write and Sell an Ebook. And I've done that as a master class, and that book was the textbook, and people paid a lot more. This is what's so interesting about it. People paid $97 for a 4-week class. It was like a group coaching class, even though that book, I could never sell the book for that. So you can often earn a lot of more money by just changing the format, the structure of what you do. And of course, people have a chance to ask you questions. It's more valuable to people.
You could do that with fiction also. I know you said especially nonfiction, but a lot of people like to connect with authors, and you can even charge to connect with you and ask questions about your novel, about the process of writing, things like that.
or even about the characters, or what's going to happen after the book ends, or something, or what happened before that. Absolutely. So you could create a whole, that would be a...
Did they really live happily ever after?
Exactly. No, that's a great point. That's a great point. Thanks. So the third thing is you can charge people for a live virtual workshop. So by this, I mean something that's 2 to 4 hours. It could even be all day. Obviously, you have to have some breaks. But it's a little bit different than just a webinar, which is usually an hour and a half maximum, and sometimes even less than an hour. Right. So you're actually giving people a course, a full course, and you charge people for it. So again, it's not that much different than the previous one, except there's more content. You charge people more money. And in a workshop, there's usually time, sort of blank time. You give people instruction and then you say, now do it. And then you give people instruction and they do it. And so by the end of the workshop, they actually have completed something, for example. So that can be really valuable for people, especially who procrastinate and really need that accountability and that guidance to get something done. So that's the third one. And the fourth one is to organize a webinar series. So that time when I got those 3,000 people from 97 countries, that was a webinar series. And you do this with guests and you charge for it. And the guests may promote the webinar as your affiliate, for example. So that's another way that you get more people on. Right. And or you can do it for free and then have some offers in it or an upsell afterwards. But the point is that you have a webinar series, and sort of you've heard of like teleseminars, but these are webinars with many guests, and you could either charge for it then or later. So so that's number 4. Number 5 is to promote somebody else's free webinar as an affiliate when they give an offer. So you can be on the affiliate side and promote. So you might promote an author, another author, or another speaker that doesn't compete with you. And very often this is done as a trade. So they promote you and then you promote them. But it's a way of making affiliate commissions as well.
Right.
So a sixth way, and you've probably seen this, is it's a free webinar series with no selling. And again, you would have guests, but you sell the videos after they expire. So each person's talk expires after a few days, and then eventually the whole thing expires, and then you say, but you can get permanent access for a certain amount of money. That's
sort of like a telesummit or webinar.
It is. But, and the difference between this and the other one is that in this case, there's just no selling on the webinars right. at all. Yeah, so everything is free. And sometimes each guest, in fact, almost always, each guest will have a free offer because they're trying to get people to grow their list as well.
Right.
And yeah. So the seventh way is to do a joint venture. It's a little bit more complicated. Do a joint venture with another person, and you promote a free webinar. Sometimes both of you do it together. So I did this a couple of months ago with a colleague, and I do webinars a lot about PowerPoint and presenting, and her specialty is storytelling, which is a big buzzword in presenting. So we did something on storytelling, and she talked more about the content, and I talked about visual storytelling, how you can make the graphics that show the story.
Okay.
And we didn't charge for it. There was no selling on it. So we promoted each other, and then we shared our lists because the opt-in form said that you would get a free subscription to both of our newsletters. So we told people about that in advance. But what we did then was we made money on upsells and future promotions. So we both had an affiliate program where there's lifetime cookies. So when my people join her list and she tries to sell them something else, I'll get commissions and vice versa. So it's future money. But you bring in a lot of people that way, and several of these, up front it's free, and that's what brings people in. So, and that's a good example, again, of something that 2 authors might work together. I don't know how often authors think about partnering, but it's a very powerful thing to do.
Well, I keep telling them to do that.
Yeah, and authors, tend to be kind of introverted because they spend lots of, I'm an author, and I've written lots of books, and I know from my own experience that it's hard to put yourself out publicly and face your people because you're so used to going within and thinking and writing alone.
Right.
But it's really important to partner with others to expand your reach. So you can see several of my ideas involve that. So that was number 7. So number 8 is to use webinars as part of a membership program, such as a mastermind group, and people pay monthly. And this can be very powerful. So whatever your topic is, then whatever you speak about or write about, you can have a coaching group based on it, or I guess for fiction, I don't know what it would be, maybe coming up with side stories of some of the characters, I guess. But whatever it is, if people want access to you, and as readers often do want access to authors, you can come up with this program where people pay monthly, and then you do a webinar. It could be once a week or once a month, whatever it is, depending on the price, I guess, of your mastermind group or whatever group it is. And this is a powerful way to make money, to keep people paying monthly. So it's really powerful. Number 9 is to do webinars for a third party and get paid a fee. So the one that I just told you about, Training Magazine, they didn't pay me. But I've done other webinars in the past. In fact, that's how I started doing webinars, was for an organization that they charged people for webinars, and they found people to do the webinars, and they paid them $500 or $800 a pop. And I actually did this for 2 years before I started doing my own. I started that in 2007. So there are organizations that do that, and they will pay you as a subject matter expert to do a webinar, and they do all the promotion, and they just pay you.
Are those easy to find, or do they find you?
In my case, they found me because I was known as an expert on PowerPoint, and that was how I started doing them.
Okay.
But you need to, and let's see what I can say. So that one was instant. What was it? Not instant. It was called Audio Solutions with a Z at the end. And they do very specific types of topics. They're all business related. Some of them are related to human resources. So I can do things on training, which is part of human resources. And I did another group for a magazine called CFO Magazine, which stands for Chief Financial Officer.
Right.
So they have a magazine, but they also do webinars. They charge people for them, and they find people who can do webinars on them. A lot of their webinars are on Excel, but I did a couple of them. One was how to bring your charts from Excel into PowerPoint and make them look presentable to the C-suite, to the executives, because a lot of these people don't know how to do that. And then another one was, I don't remember, but those are the types of things. So they're usually specialized, because otherwise they're not going to be able to. They usually charge anywhere from $50 to $150 per person for webinars, and that's how they can pay you $500. Yeah, but it's definitely
it's cheap labor for them.
It's cheap labor for them. Actually, I stopped doing that because of that. I didn't want to be thought of as cheap labor, John. But they. So it would almost always be in a specific field. And there are many authors and speakers who have a specific field that they talk about that can be sometimes highly technical or very specific. And there are industry groups that will do these types of webinars. Okay. And then 10th one is...
10.
Number 10. So, again, so I mentioned this one where I got these 2,847 for Training Magazine Network. So this is this idea. You do a free webinar for a third party, and then you sell to the people later. So there are a bunch of things that you can do with this. So very often they'll let you make a free offer to get them to subscribe. And then with autoresponders and your whatever promotions you do, you can sell to them later. You can sometimes ask for the list of registrants. And you have to be very careful about this because they didn't actually subscribe to your list. But if they give it to you and you email them right afterwards, I've done this numerous times, never had one person mark it as spam. You say, since you registered for such and such a webinar, I wanted to remind you about, you can get this free thing if you opt in here, and here's the download of a PDF of my slides or whatever it is, and and here's my bonus, whatever it is. You just make the free offer again to them afterwards.
Right.
And I get letters thanking me for it. I really do. And
well, people forget.
Yes, exactly. So it's if they haven't subscribed, you have to be careful not to spam them, but it can be extremely valuable. So I don't know if this sounds good, but out of those 2,800 people, I have about 220 people who actually subscribed from that. But in one day to get 200 people on my list, that's not bad.
No, not at all.
Right.
Okay, great. And are you going to make a special offer today?
Yes, I am going to make a special offer today. And I have I'll leave most of it for the webinar, but I have a course called Profit with Webinars, and this is what I just told you is actually a lot more in detail than I say there, because I just talk about there are different ways of making money, and I mentioned some of these but not in so much detail.
Okay.
But there's so much to know about creating webinars. Right. And my main point today is going to be that everybody's doing webinars because everybody's attended webinars. So they can't be rocket science. They can't be that difficult. But people are still a little afraid of them. They're afraid of the technology, and they don't know what they're going to say, and they might be shy to speak. And by the way, webinars are this ideal venue for people who are afraid to speak. The speakers aren't going to relate to this so much, but the authors will. Because if you're afraid to speak in front of an audience on a webinar, you don't see them, and you can have them see you with a webcam, but you don't have to. Very often they don't see you. So you're still there in your room, and you can have your script in front of you. I don't recommend reading it like a robot, but you can have all the notes that you want. And so it's a very safe way to reach people, and you can reach more people than you can by speaking in front of a live audience. And
I do find that a lot of authors just go, well, it's just too complicated.
Right. So I want to emphasize, if so many people are doing webinars, it can't be that complicated, right? So I think actually the technology of the webinar service is probably the easiest part of it. It really isn't that hard, and they have either free levels or free trials, and you just try it out and get used to it, and then you'll feel quite comfortable with it. I think the harder part of it is promoting it and the follow-up and the whole system of opting people in, which the webinar services have their own, service for that. They'll send in the emails to before and after, and so there are different ways of doing it, but they really try to make it easy for people. So it's just, yes, you have to get out there and promote, and it's good to partner with others when you want to promote, as I'm doing, but it's really not that difficult. I think the most important thing is, just as if you as an author or a speaker, that's really hard for some people too. You might not think that because that's your skill and what you've learned to do and what you feel comfortable with, but many people find it really hard to write and really scary to speak. So just as you honed your craft, and just as you learned what to do and increased your skill, it's the same thing. Yes, there's this learning curve, but once you have it, it really isn't that hard.
Okay. So you're going to be doing a course coming up, and
yes,
I'll send them a link for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Great. Yeah. So the webinar, we were recording this on Wednesday, and the free webinar is this afternoon. And then after that, people who missed the webinar, the live webinar, they can watch the recording, and this will be a great addition to it. So thanks for interviewing me.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.